for joining us for this episode of Talking Health in the 406, where we're one community under the big sky. I'm Trina Filan, a public health evaluator.
And I'm Margaret Mullins, a social determinants of health program coordinator.
We have with us today 4 people to talk about an incredible youth camp here in Montana for kids with type 1 diabetes, Camp MYDA, which stands for the Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance. Our guests are Tanya Furman, Marcy Butcher, Mike Collins, and Teresa Jordan.
For everyone listening out there, there are several different types of diabetes, and today we're specifically talking about type 1 diabetes. We don't really have good Montana-specific data for kids with type 1 diabetes because of the way that we collect data. What we do know is it's a complicated and significant chronic condition. So we're really glad to have the opportunity to talk with this group of people we have here today about this great camp and what they've been able to do for kids diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you all for taking the time to talk with us. We'd like to start with a brief introduction from each of you. So if you could tell us your name and a little bit about how you're connected to the camp. Let's start with Tanya.
Hi, my name is Tanya Furman. I am the founder of Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance. I have been a type 1 diabetic for 30 years now. So I've attended as a camper, a counselor, and now I'm proud to be the executive director.
Thank you. Teresa, how did you get involved with the camp?
I'm Teresa Jordan, and I got involved with Camp MYDA because my daughter, who's now 14, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 5 years ago. I've been going to the camp for a couple of years now as a camp counselor, aka a helicopter parent. and then I just fell in love with it. And then I also stepped onto the board as the community outreach liaison. So it's been a lot of fun, and that's how I've been connected with MYDA.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Mike, we know you wear a couple of different hats in this case. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your involvement?
Sure. I'm Mike Collins. I live in Kalispell. I'm actually a type 2 diabetic, and I've been involved in diabetes causes for many years through Lions Club, and ended up being the president of the board of MYDA currently. So attended the camp for the last 3 years. It's been a blast.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And last but not least, Marcy, who is also one of our good colleagues here at DPHHS. Marcy, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your involvement?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Marcy Butcher. I'm a dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist. I've been in the diabetes field for my whole career, over 30 years. And my husband has type 1 diabetes, and he's been living with type 1 for over 30 years. So type 1 has always been near and dear to my heart. I was a pediatric diabetes educator back in the day, and helped at various diabetes camps. And then I met Tanya about 5 years ago and just fell in love with the vision of the Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance for providing camp. And then the other thing in terms of my job at the state diabetes program is I hear a lot about the financial barriers of living with diabetes, and a piece of the Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance is providing out-of-pocket financial assistance for those families needing assistance with diabetes supplies costs. So I was all in 100% when I chatted with Tanya, and I am now sitting on the board of directors.
Wow, there's a lot of passion at this conversational table. Thank you all for sharing it. So we're going to dive in to some specific questions, and then we'll just see what happens.
And I have so many questions after even just hearing your introductions. So I think I'll start with Tanya. Tanya, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and sort of your motivation for starting your work with Camp MYDA?
Absolutely. So like I had mentioned, I've attended camps as a counselor and as a camper. It was provided by the American Diabetes Association. Unfortunately, the American Diabetes Association lost funding for Montana, which then provided a great opportunity for me to step in and create a grassroots nonprofit specified for families and youth with type 1 diabetes here in Montana. We're completely funded by Montanans, fundraisers, and personal donations. The first 2 years wasn't doable to have a camp. The first year we figured out facilities and funding and events and things and how we were going to put on a camp, creating that board, creating a medical team, and so on. And the first year we ended up doing was day camps. So we packed up our team. We had a day camp in Flathead at Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp on a Monday, loaded everything up into a trailer, loaded everybody else up, and we traveled to Helena, had a day camp in Helena on Wednesday, loaded up, and then we all drove to Billings and had a day camp in Billings on Friday. So we weren't able to have our overnight residential camp, but we were able to do the day camps. And since then, we've been able to have the 5-day overnight residential camps and average about 120 kids. Our first successful year, we followed up with that spring with the family retreat that we have done annually since then, which is a weekend getaway. First one was in Fairmont. Last year was in Butte. And that includes kids and families and adults with type 1 diabetes to come and share their experiences, be educated, find resources and collaboration. And the original creation of MYDA was the idea of the out-of-pocket that Marcy mentioned. And that's been a near and dear thing to our heart, to be able to help several families throughout the year. Each kid has an opportunity to apply for this out-of-pocket assistance, up to $500 per year per kid. And when I say kid, that's up to the age of 25. That's a great opportunity for, those college kids and so forth. And so I'm just really proud of everything that we've accomplished and everything that we have that's coming up for the future.
It's amazing when I listen to this and I think about the evolution and the creativity of creating the day camps when you were in a really difficult time period. That's an incredible and ingenious idea. Talk just a little bit more. You said a few of the things that you did in order to get the organization going, like funding and, some of the facility organization. But there is so much that goes into putting this camp together. And I think it would help, me to understand better what some of those steps are, because I know it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And let me tell you, it takes an army. And I'm blessed. I have an amazing army. The people that are involved are, again, like you said, very passionate, very dedicated. Diabetes touches their lives, and we are able to overcome and conquer this daily battle with all these amazing people in our life that make things like this happen. You're right. It takes medical committees. It takes activities and programming. It takes a huge dietary team. We do a dance at camp. We have arts and crafts. We do nutrition and diabetes education games. It takes lifeguards, which surprisingly is very hard to find for lake time. We have campfires, so, coming up with the songs and skits and dances, and we do talent shows. And this year we're excited to include low ropes and high ropes courses. But it's a year-long process to get a 5-day camp set up for all of these kids. And another thing we're incredibly blessed with is we are able to bus our kids from Billings. So we have a bus that brings kids from Billings, stops in Bozeman, Helena, Missoula, and then comes to the camp. And then on Friday, buses them back, which is a huge resource to these families because camp is Monday through Friday. So instead of them having to take their time off work and gas and money, we provide that tool for them.
And there's just so many aspects to this that I think people don't realize. I mean, that transportation piece is huge, that parents would have to take off time on a Monday and a Friday. There are so many parts of this that affect families. And that really helped give me a better appreciation of all the different aspects. One of the things I'm curious about, your MYDA website is full of great information, but I was wondering if you could sort of summarize for us, what the camp is like, for the kids, for our listeners, maybe what a day at camp looks like.
And I suspect this might be a everybody wants to say stuff question. So that's okay.
So we do each cabin wakes up. We have younger boys, younger girls, middle boys, older girls. Each group has a lead medical, a support medical students, and non-medical counselors that help get these kids up and for the day. They do blood sugar checks if needed. They look over the menu to see what's going to be available for that meal time, average out their carbs, pre-dose for insulin for their meals. We have breakfast, which is a huge family style breakfast, educational opportunities right then and there all day, every day for, how many carbs did you eat instead of just average? Do we need to take any more insulin? What's the activity after breakfast? Is it high activity? Is it low activity? Are we going to need more insulin? And, like I said, each day contains arts and crafts, exercise of some sort. We do a lot of basketball, relay races, things like that, capture the flag. And then educational diabetes and nutrition. We try and make it super fun. And then we do special activities like I mentioned, the talent show, campfire, the dance. We have an ice cream social at the dance. We do MYDA milestones, which is us recognizing and giving everybody a hoorah for the years they've lived with type 1 and conquered each day.
Tanya really beautifully summed that up because there are so many things that we do every day. But I think it's really important to emphasize how life-changing this is for the campers to see their transition from the beginning of the week to the end of the week and the confidence and the comfort level walking in their own skin. And then there's some that have, this isn't the first rodeo for them. So the excitement of getting to connect with their people again. And so it's very exciting. And there are so many activities all the time. Like we really strive to make sure that these children feel like they are allowed to totally be themselves and feel so safe while doing this, because some of them, this is the very first time they've ever been away from home. They've ever been away from their either parent or caregiver. So it is such a monumental week. And again, just the transition from the start to the end of the week, it's such a beautiful thing to experience as an observer. And then of course I'm biased. I mean, I think it's my daughter her confidence has just through the roof since she started participating in MYDA events. So it's wonderful.
I love to hear that. I think that you're right. The comfort in numbers and sharing that experience with other like-minded and, similar kids, just the benefits and the power of that is really extraordinary.
Yeah, I just wanted to just commend Tanya and Teresa on just really great comments on what camp looks like. And particularly Teresa on the very personal experience that kids have. It is extraordinary. It really is. And while there's, teachable moments throughout, the whole week of camp, diabetes education, so to speak, coming as a diabetes educator, those are the things that we think about and have been planned in, but there's teachable moments all throughout this whole week to see them gain confidence in having those teachable moments and learning and practicing all week and then coming out the other end as really confident and making amazing friendships. And, really it's about being a kid there, but yet having the commonality of everybody else having diabetes and I'm not by myself and I'm not the only one. And they're going to just really progress by leaps and bounds throughout this whole week and moving forward.
I'm curious, do a lot of the kids return year after year?
Yes, a lot of them do, and I wanted to add to Marcy's just a little bit. I do the part of the videos at camp, and I get to interview some of the kids afterwards. And diabetes is very difficult, and for these kids, they can feel really isolated. And after camp, one of the common phrases is, "Excuse me." I'm not alone. I'm with people like me. Very cool.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike.
I'm tearing up too.
I
It's
know.
truly profound.
Yeah, they're so impactful. And to make a difference in the life of a child like that is really something.
I was going to say that's an additional task there at camp, is getting all those pictures, all those videos, all those memories. So it's so incredibly important to these parents to see their kids on Facebook. And every day we're updating these pictures and these videos of what their kids are doing. And man, the parents just love that. So our people that are taking pictures and doing these videos, it's life-changing for the parent who had to also leave their comfort zone and leave their kid at camp a lot of times for the very first time. And it is incredibly hard for those parents to do that. In their comments of when they come to pick their kid back up and just going, wow, this is a completely different kid. He won't let me give him his shots anymore. He has to take his shots. Or, he's telling me how many carbs we had when we got home for dinner. And, another role that we don't give enough credit to is Jeremy. He just found us a new registration platform. If there is anything and everything we need, we go to Jeremy and he makes it happen when it's on the tech side. So I want to give huge kudos to him too for making reports, that we needed done, any forms. He keeps up on all of that stuff. So that's definitely a role that doesn't get as well acknowledged as it really should.
And thanks for reminding us that, type 1 diabetes, especially in children, is a family affair. And we have to remember that at all times. There's so many people involved in that process. And I'll direct this at Tanya at first, but again, anybody chime in, because you probably recognize different aspects of this. But what would you consider the biggest challenges of running the camp?
Food. Apparently, our kids eat 3 times the amount of food as any other camp, oddly enough. We don't have the commissary open for these kids to purchase just random snacks. It's pretty food controlled, not that they don't get fed a ton. We have breakfast, and then we do snack, and we do lunch, and we do snack, and we do dinner, and we do snack at campfire. So, we're feeding these kids constantly. You have to think about, not only are they getting those snacks, but do we have fruit snacks for low treatments, hypoglycemia low treatments? The amount of food that our kids consume is huge. And we're running them all day long. So it just takes a lot of planning. Brooke, our dietary leader, spends all year planning this. We provide all of our own snacks. So we look at, who can we get to donate for ultimately 200 people, because we have to count most of our volunteers are type 1 as well. And so we're doing 3 snacks a day and then hypoglycemic snacks. So, and we want to keep them nutritious and not necessarily low carb, but carb conscientious. And that is what I would say has always been the most challenging. Obviously training is huge. We want everybody's trained on medical and non-medical. So if I have, Dr. Lee coming to camp to be a doctor, Dr. Lee still has to find out how to have fun with the kids and be involved in not only their diabetes care, but activities and swimming and, showing these kids that I may be a doctor, I may be a type 1, but I still need to be involved in this activity and have fun and partake and get the whole experience of what camp really is.
I wanted to add that one of our big struggles in planning this and implementing it is getting enough qualified medical personnel to volunteer a week of their time to help out the kids. We have to have medical personnel on board because there's decisions about how much insulin they need to take, things like that it requires a medical person to be involved. So we could offer this to more kids if we had more medical volunteers.
Off of what Tanya and Mike said, getting the med staff, and because we could in fact take a lot more kids, those slots would be filled. Once registration goes live, it's less than 24 hours and that camp is filled. So it's such a valuable thing to do every year. And we have the population of children in Montana that would fill that camp up. If we had more open slots, no questions, they'd be filled. And so it's extremely important to have the med staff, the qualified med staff, the trained med staff. And so if you're interested, reach out to MYDA, because we'd welcome you with open arms.
I think that's very true. The medical staff is huge, and it takes incredible number of medical volunteers to run a camp like this. But I just want everybody to know as well that there is a team of medical staff that are planning throughout the year to ensure that the needs of the kids are all met and that everybody is safe at all times. And that takes an incredible amount of planning by the medical team, and then training of the med staff that are there, and just making sure that we have enough medical staff, health professionals involved at camp. It's really meaningful if we can just expand the number of kids that are able to access camp. And that means we have to have a good number of volunteers every year.
And we can only open it up to 100 out of the gate. So to give you a perspective of what we currently have available, and like Teresa said, we could really fill that up if we had the medical personnel.
Thank you for that excellent discussion. We have a couple of questions that are for Teresa as a parent and counselor. Teresa, and this kind of relates to the clear emotion that you all expressed on seeing the joy and transformation that the campers experience. Teresa, what went into the decision-making process for you to allow your child to go to Camp MYDA? What was that like? And then what persuaded you to become a counselor?
So I really wanted to have Stella find her people, other children that are living with this all the time. Stella was diagnosed in January, and then it was like the first camp that we had found out about was going to happen in that following August. And we had gone to her specialist, Claire Steinberg, phenomenal. And the dietitian, Brooke Foth, they referred us to MYDA. And Stella right away showed interest. She was not nervous. She was super excited to meet other kids. And so it wasn't really a deep conversation or a long conversation. I was really excited to get her involved and keep her, I guess, mind space where it was. She was like proactive, wanting to find things to make her more confident and more comfortable living with this. And that can be really challenging for young kids because she was 9 when she was diagnosed. And so I just thought I've got to keep her in this headspace. And she has remained very positive about this. And I give a lot of credit to Camp MYDA because, again, it can be very easy to struggle with it and feel isolated and alone. And she knew right away that there was a whole family of people out there that would always have her back. The one thing that she said was, Mom, I want to go, but I've never been away from you. So they need volunteers too. Could you go? But I don't want to see you every day. I'm like, okay. And so I signed up, and I was probably more nervous than her because I was like, oh gosh, like I've never done anything like this. I mean, I've raised my own kids, but I've not done this before. I signed up, and I actually wanted the little kids. I thought it would be really nice to kind of baby them because they're just tiny, and they were even younger than Stella. So I signed up, and I got the little kid cabin, little girls. And that was a life-changing experience. Total life-changing. Because you see your own kids doing it and you're like, yes, my kid's really resilient. But when you see all these other kids and they're just so mentally strong, these kids are dealing with things that there's a lot of adults that can't handle what these kids deal with. And so it was just so inspiring and rewarding, this whole experience and journey with these young kids, that I was like, I'll never not do this. I'll never not. And then, of course, it was just beautiful watching my daughter just being comfortable in her own skin and meeting other people and being totally engaged and enthralled in everything every day. And it was just, again, life changing, life changing. If there's anyone listening that is wondering, oh gosh, could I do this? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because it was, again, so rewarding to watch all this and be a part of it. And it was something to really be proud of. MYDA's makes me proud all the time for the things that they do, and that I get to be a part of it too, along with all these children. So it was an easy decision to get involved. A little nervous at the beginning, easy. And so my first year, boy, they made my heart melt. And like I said, I just said, I'm always going to do this. My second year came back. It was another amazing experience with more little girls. And it was amazing too, because I showed up, and then all the littles from the year before were like, Teresa, and there's just so much to be in awe of, right? And so it was easy. It was easy. And now MYDA stuck with me now.
Teresa, as a counselor, so we've heard a little bit about what a typical or a typical day or week can be for the campers. What is it like as a counselor? What do you do?
Gosh, because I have the little girls. And so, sometimes, they've never even slept over at family members' homes. They've never had a sleepover before. And so I try to make it really fun. Sometimes I smuggle my own stuff in, like bubbles, coloring books, like the little nail designs. So I just want to make sure that they're as comfy and cozy and secure as possible. I try to have structure for them, because again, they're little, and most moms of littles have a lot of structure, routine. I want to give them that, like, okay, this is kind of like what my mom does, so it feels kind of like normal at home. But we get up in the morning, we do blood sugar checks, just like Tanya had mentioned. I have, depending on how many campers are in my cabin, we have like a shower schedule. I mean, I really do try to break it down for the kids. And, but they do all the activities, like the big kids. They'll do the lake time, the arts and crafts. My littles love a game called Gaga Ball. Obsessed with the game. And I really have to be on top of them for blood sugar checks after that one. I tell you, they really work every carb off in their body with that one. But it's just a lot of fun. I mean, we do all of the things that Tanya had mentioned, and I don't get a lot of homesick. And so whenever you see one that's feeling a little down, you just give them the motherly, like, hugs and love, and ask them what's going on. And they're just so, again, resilient, and their effective communication skills at that age are just mind-blowing to me, because they will tell me exactly what they're thinking and what they need and what they want. And it's just a lot of fun. Their innocence and vulnerability. It's neat. So I love it.
You also talked a lot about the differences in the campers between when they arrive and when they are done. Is there anything that stands out, and this is maybe an everybody question, to you as characteristics that they can develop and sustain into their non-camping time? Have you seen any of that? Or
so what I see from my littles is they're not, because sometimes when they come in, they're away from home, and sometimes they're a little nervous of, like, the food. What am I going to do with this food? Like, I'm so, it has to be so controlled, and they're just a little nervous. So to see them at the beginning of the week, being more and more comfortable with, hey, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to load my plate up and I'm going to eat it, because I can eat whatever I want. I just have to cover it. Hey, Teresa, can I get seconds? Can we cover it? Yes, you can. So yeah, go for it. So them understanding that it's okay, because again, at that young age, it can be intimidating still, like what's okay to eat, their comfort level with food. Um, and so it's fun to watch that. It's fun to watch them go from what works at home, their comfort level at home, with different sites where they put their Dexcoms or their Omnipod, their pumps. So site changes to see their comfort level at the very end with, okay, I'm going to try a new place, or I'm going to suggest a new place to my mom when I get home. They're excited about all these little things that, again, it's just building their confidence. And I would say that is the biggest takeaway. If you're confident and you understand that you are capable of managing this, then that is obviously something that they're going to be able to sustain throughout their whole lives. And so if we're giving them all these tools in this week and then they return and we're reinforcing it and we're giving them more, it's just, again, life-changing. And there's, again, so many things that we do with them that I really think they can carry over into their years with diabetes.
Teresa, I was just thinking that these kids are pretty good probably at talking all you counselors into singing, dancing, and doing skits too.
All the time. All the time. It is the funnest thing because it's a, you want to be embarrassing. You want to have fun. You want to let go because you want the kids to feel like it's okay to just let go and have fun, because we also have those age groups at camp that, it's like, body's changing. I'm not only type 1, but my body's changing, all the things. And they're kind of scared. They're kind of nervous, a little timid. And then they see Tanya running around in a unicorn or dinosaur costume, like an inflatable one. And you got the Incredible Hulk running down. You got we're just having fun. And yes, you want to be a goofball, because the more you're a goofball, the more you're engaged. It trickles over. It becomes contagious. And by the end of the week, everybody's screaming off the top of their lung, all these camp songs and dances and the talent show. Oh gosh, let's talk about the talent show. I just want to say the kids are each other's number one fans when it comes to being so supportive of seeing their peer get up, because that's really intimidating. That's nerve-wracking. I get nervous watching these little sweet souls go up there and they're just giving it their all. But everybody's just screaming and cheering and having a good time and support of one another. It's crazy.
That makes me want to go.
You guys should come.
Yeah, it does. I was a camp counselor myself, and the kids love nothing better than to have the grown-ups, at their level doing all those silly things. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, it's so cool to watch.
I'm going to turn my attention for a moment to Mike. Mike, you talked a little bit about your involvement and your connection with the Lions Club. And I'd just like to hear a little bit more about how you actually got involved and why the Lions Club thinks this is an important program.
I've been a Lion almost as long as I've been a diabetic. Lions Club is an organization based totally on service to your communities. We have Lions Club International has a list of causes, and diabetes has been one for many, many years. Being a diabetic, I am the district, which is the state of Montana, diabetes chairperson. So we have given to the diabetes camps in the state of Montana for many, many years. And I've just been involved in diabetes myself because I was a ADA board member for a while in Montana. And so when COVID hit, we have all these clubs that like to donate to diabetes camp. And I reached out. I didn't even know it was Tanya. Reached out on Facebook and said, hey, we got money we want to give, or what's going on? Because the COVID had and ADA evaporated from Montana for financial reasons. And that's how I got hooked up with Tanya. And then eventually Lions has a foundation called Lions Club International Foundation, and they do grants. So we put together, Lions in the state of Montana, a grant to run the initial camp. We got a $40,000 matching grant through Lions, and that's how I ended up with MYDA. And it's such an amazing group of people and an amazing experience that's why I'm here. So,
And do you find that the camp, that the funding for the camp from all those different sources is hard to sustain, or perhaps with, now that you've mentioned the videos and the things that you do at the end of camp, that you're sort of able through different meetings and, conversations to keep that flow, that there's good energy in the background from the Lions Club and others to do that?
fundraising is always difficult. I mean, and things have really gone well for MYDA, but we always need money. This is an expensive proposition. It costs us, I'm not sure the number this year, roughly $1,400 per child at camp. And we try to be able to let anybody come to camp, whether they can afford it or not. So we have a sliding scale. If you can afford to send your kid to camp, we ask you to do that. If not, down to you can't afford a nickel, that's fine. We have a way to get you to camp also. We just had a big fundraiser in Helena. We are a 501c3, so it's tax deductible donations. Besides planning camp, we're always working on finding money. That's just part of the charity games. We appreciate every and any donations, and that helps us out a lot.
Yeah, I can hear it's a year-round event.
And I just want to thank Mike for being here and talking a little bit about Lions Club's efforts, because Lions has been an incredible supporter of Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance. And there's clubs all across Montana in individual little communities that are putting money towards MYDA as well, meaning it's very grassroots and so very appreciated on a very local and individual level. And the Lions has had diabetes in its mission for a long time, but even prior to that, vision has been a key driver and goal of the Lions Clubs. And of course, vision is one of the complications of diabetes, potentially. And the loss of vision is, for some people, a huge quality of life thing that they deal with. And so for Lions Clubs to fit the vision aspects and diabetes together, and then wanting to support strong and healthy communities and strong and healthy kids living with diabetes, I think it's pretty incredible, and much gratitude to Lions Clubs across Montana.
I second that. I'm keeping my eyes open for the Lions Clubs in all our communities, and they do so much great work. So thank you, Mike, and for that effort across the state. I got one more question for you, Mike. Tanya mentioned the transportation for the campers. And I just wondered if you might talk a little bit about that, because I can imagine that is no small feat. Depending on where all these campers are, I suspect they're all over the place. So getting from one end to the other and back again. Can you just tell us a little bit about how that works?
Well, actually, probably Tanya can speak a little better. We actually have had the last couple of years a donor that has been paying for that bus.
That's Intermountain Health out of Billings. We have a wonderful doctor over there who's on their board that is very supportive of MYDA. He is also a type 1. So that's how him and his clinic are able to give back, is to make sure that is funded.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to ask Marcy a couple of questions now. Marcy, you are a very big-hearted and very passionate advocate for people with diabetes and for diabetes care. What drove you to be a board member? How did you get involved with all of this? Because in 2019, when I first started here, you were talking about a cool camp that was getting going.
As soon as I found out about MYDA, I was like, everybody, we need to support this camp and do all we can to get this camp rolling, because it is going to meet a huge need in Montana. I guess in terms of why I got involved, and I alluded a little bit to this in terms of in my job as the diabetes education coordinator for the Montana Diabetes Program at the State Health Department, a lot of what I hear and the data shows this as well, is that diabetes is so expensive to live with, and my own family experiences that with my husband having type 1 diabetes, and the out-of-pocket costs for diabetes supplies, et cetera. It can be phenomenal, even with insurance. And for people that don't have adequate insurance or no insurance, it can be devastating in terms of health outcomes. And so that's where I hear a lot of issues. Is diabetes care can be an inequitable thing because of ability to afford care and self-management supplies. So when I had an incredible conversation with Tanya, and I get just a little choked up because it's such a powerful thing, is helping people with out-of-pocket financial costs. Nobody should not be able to afford good care and to be able to take good care of themselves in living with diabetes, and to be able to provide out-of-pocket costs assistance to, and I can't remember the numbers of families. It's like 20 families or 20 kids a year. I think last year, Tanya, you can jump in with numbers maybe.
I think we actually had 32 last year.
Oh my gosh, 32 families.
Yeah, and we actually increased our budget of $10,000 in September to accommodate the remaining months of the year. So
yeah,
increased it to 15,000, and hopefully be able to keep increasing that, being able to help more families too.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible, and the families are so very grateful. So it's $500 per kid per year. So we just recently had an application for twins that have diabetes. And if you can imagine one child with diabetes in a family, two or more, the financial burden is very real. And so to be able to help provide that assistance to families, it's truly, that's one of the things that, in addition to camp, which is, you've heard from Teresa and Tanya and Mike. I mean, it's incredible. And I've been at camp. It's absolutely over the moon, beyond incredible for families, but also just the challenges that I hear about financially and caring for your diabetes. That's one of the things that really drove me to participate in the board and know that I'm helping move things along in a really good direction, because MYDA has a really good vision.
But I suspect we have parents that are listening to this, and if they're like me, are really excited about the prospect of camp for their child. But you know how we are about our children. We're very worried. And although you have spoken to the medical help that you have and parents like Teresa that are there to comfort your kids, you would have concerns. So I'm just sort of wondering what you tell parents to help alleviate some of that worry, because they'll tell us, but it's different. My child's different. My child needs X, Y, Z. What are some of the things that you do to reassure them?
Obviously, the medical aspect is a huge part. They're not going to have the amount of medical around them any other time in their year. And we're talking MDs, NPs, PAs, RNs, registered certified diabetes educators. I mean, our medical team is absolutely flooring. But, we get that each kid probably has its different challenges. We've had, families saying, well, little Johnny only eats chicken nuggets. What the parents don't realize is when we sit little Johnny down at a table and he's sitting with 8 other kids who are eating what's available, kids want to fit in. Kids want to be doing what other kids are doing. And the likelihood of little Johnny going and eating something outside of his chicken nuggets is incredibly high. And same with activities. We just comfort them that we're going to give them this week to spread their wings and find out things they may or may not like, or things they'd like to do or not like to do, and give them that freedom of us knowing not all of little Johnny's, niches. We're just going to let him be him.
For me, as a camp counselor, during our check-in process, the parents are bringing their children over, getting them all set up. And I try to find ways to ensure that I connect with every single parent as we are walking them to their cabin. I really try to be right there, because it can be a lot of kids in one space at one time, checking in and then getting, sent off. And some parents, some parents are ready for it. Some parents are like, go be you. And some parents, they are walking with me, they are talking with me, that phrase, read the room, and what parent you need to connect with, so they feel that they are safe leaving their child, they're confident leaving their child. And there's been many times where I have hugged the mom, like, it's okay, I got you, everybody will be okay. And there are ways to connect with parents even while we're there, if they are really concerned or struggling. But I have found that just taking those extra minutes with each of the parents, or grandparents, but just spending that little extra moment with them, showing them around the cabin, kind of giving them just a brief rundown of the cool activities we're about to jump into. It goes a long way connecting with those parents and having those little moments to a heart to heart. And then I share my personal experience with it as well.
All right. So I suspect there are many parents that are sold on camp. It would not be surprising. How would a parent go about then getting their child signed up and then ready for camp? The sort of preparation on the child end of things. And that's for anybody.
So we do ask that you go onto our website, which is www.mydiabetiesalliance.org, and sign up for our newsletter. And there's a place on our website as well to RSVP your camper for camp. And once you sign up for that newsletter, and you sign up to RSVP, they'll get a notification to sign their kid up for camp 24 hours before the public gets that same link. Like Teresa said, that fills up in less than 24 hours. A little side note on our website, I made our website My Diabetes Alliance, which is MYDA, because I wanted our families to have ownership and being part of Montana Youth Diabetes Alliance. If that makes it easier for anybody to remember what our website is, that might help too.
If the parents are, go to the website and check things out, and they're again questioning whether this is going to work for them, the pictures and all the things that we have done in the previous camps are there, so they can kind of go through those galleries. And then if they do go ahead and proceed, it is really cool what comes out leading up to camp, the communications, and, they send out the checklist so the kids start getting excited, like what to pack, and we have days in which are themed. And so then again, it's fun for the parents and the child to then get together and be like, okay, cool. What are we going to do for Montana Day that week? Just to give you an example. And so it can be really fun getting all of these things put together. So then by the time the family goes to drop off, the kids have all their things and they're excited to put their outfits on and get going. So it's not like they show up and it's a big secret or surprise. There is some preparation for the families to do ahead of time. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, they have to go shopping to do all this stuff. It's really just what's at home, have fun with it. And it's good for both the child and the parents.
You've talked a lot about the ways you keep people, your parents, informed during camp and how you keep kids connected or families connected via the website. Are there any other ways that either the campers, the volunteers, or the parents stay in touch with each other throughout the rest of the year?
So we do not have a platform specifically for MYDA for them to communicate. So we do advise that they, campers share their numbers, share their Instagrams or whatever to keep in communication. But surprisingly, there was last year a group of about 12 or 15 kids, older kids, that created their own meeting space online. MYDA wasn't involved, but they did it on their own. And those kids talk every week. One of my favorite things about camp is with this certain situation, they're not talking about boys and girls, they're talking about their diabetes. And at camp, it's really fun to walk from one activity to another with these kids. because that's what they want to talk about. I mean, they're at diabetes camp, and it's really amazing when you're walking with an 8-year-old kid who's like, so what kind of insulin do you use? Or how many years have you had diabetes? And so I mean, I've gone to camp repeatedly year after year because these kids give me so much diabetes motivation to better take care of myself, be more involved, be more in the know with my diabetes. And they inspire me. We do our best to try and inspire them. And it's just easy to sit there and talk about diabetes with somebody else with diabetes. And it just gives them such a great community and a great setting to sit there and ask all the questions and figure it out and not feel alone. It tickles my heart.
And I would absolutely echo that. When I was at camp last, I was in a cabin with middle school girls, and they were all trading cell phone numbers and had promised that they would keep in contact. And what I heard later is that they do. These relationships that they build are lifelong friendships that I think it's such an amazing thing to watch develop.
We have just a couple more questions for you. And the one I have for you relates a lot to what you've been saying, the complexity of living with diabetes and helping people who are living with diabetes. How do you vet and enroll and train volunteers for the camp so that they are up to speed and up to snuff to help kids?
So there's a lot of training that goes in weeks prior to camp. We do a lot of online training. Obviously, each year we learn new in different ways to make things better for training and for camp. This year we're going to do something medical team is going to do something a little different. I'm kind of excited about it. On Sunday, our orientation day, all of our volunteers who have type 1 are now considered campers. And all of our non-diabetic volunteers, medical or non-medical, are then our counselors. So these counselors are approaching us and saying, "Hey, Tanya, what's your blood sugar?" "Oh, it's 106. "Well, how many carbs do you think you're going to have at dinner?" "Oh, probably 60. "Well, what are you thinking about eating? Can we count this together? What's your insulin to carb ratio? Are you on a pump? What would you do if you were at home? How would you go about this? What are we doing after this meal? Is it high activity?" So these counselor or medical folks are going to be taking care of us type 1s on the first day and getting kind of a one-on-one, hands-on experience. The students that we've had that have come who, "Oh yes, I'm very educated in diabetes," typically leave that week going, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea about diabetes. I learned more in this week than I've learned in 3 years in med school." And that's our hope and our goal, is that we can change some of these students' fields to diabetes and get more diabetes care in Montana. But tons and tons of training go in just for the liability aspect of it. And we don't want to put anybody in an uncomfortable situation. So everybody there, there's leadership roles. You have your lead medical, your support medical, students, things like that. And everybody knows who their go-to person is. So hopefully there's never an uncomfortable, situation. There'll always be somebody around to ask a question too.
All right. Thank you very much, Margaret.
Yes, you have all done an incredibly great job of explaining about the camp, the effort that goes behind it, the needs of the kids. I just really want to say thank you to all of you for this amazing conversation. And just to sort of wrap it up, I think it's really helpful for us to think about the big picture as we consider ways to improve public health options for people with chronic disease. Your camp is really a huge inspiration for what we can do when we work together in our communities. So I just want to thank you all so much on behalf of Trina and myself and the crew behind the scenes. Thank you also to all of you, all of our guests who are so passionate about this camp. If anyone listening would like more information on what we discussed today, please visit the website, talkinghealthinthefour06.mt.gov. And if you haven't already, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, be healthy and be well.